This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask with your host, Dr. Judith Briles. On the show today, you'll find out where book publishing is going and how to take advantage of it. How to identify and avoid publishing predators. What opportunities are emerging as the book trade evolves in new forms. How to avoid losing money and much, much more. Join us now as a variety of publishing pros will deliver insights and strategies to take the author to the next level of publishing. It's your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. Brought to you by AuthorU and the Book Shepherd. And now, here's your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
All right. Well, we've had our guest many, many times on AuthorU, your guide to book publishing. And it's such a hot property. I mean, number one, anything to do with marketing is hot property for authors and publishing because it's ever changing. And one of the new nifty tools that came along in the last couple of years is an entity called Bublish, which is the ability to do pre-marketing, during marketing, and post-marketing of your books. So we're going to deep dive into just an update on what's new, what's hot, how you could be tweaking, how you could use the tool. We'll give you a special code that you can use to get a little discount. I love discounts. And the second thing that we're going to be doing on AuthorU, your guide to book publishing, is we're just going to talk about some general things that are going on in publishing and some changes that we see, almost like a trending, is what's happening, that you, wherever you are in the journey, whether you're kind of naive and not sure of which way to go, whether you are putting your toe in the water but almost feeling a tsunami coming at you, and you're probably right, it is, or you're really more sophisticated and been doing this for a while, we're going to get into some goodies that just might take you to whatever that next level is in your process. With me is Kathy Meis, who is the visionary CEO of Bublish, and one of my colleagues who has really got all her digits, fingers and toes, in what's going on out in the publishing world because of she's at writers' conferences like I am. I just came back from Mexico where I was working with 50 writers at various stages in the journey. And I'm always amazed of what so many don't know. And yet they dive in and then they become wounded. And how do we get them out of it? So, Kathy, welcome back. So glad to have you.
Yeah, great to be back. Thanks for having me, Judith.
So you have been, you've been around a few of these writer conferences recently. What are some of the ahas that you're seeing that seem to be repetitive for some reason? How can we save? How can we throw the line out for people?
Well, I think, thematically something, I just did a big web, it's a virtual conference, but for the Indie Author Fringe Conference that the Alliance of Independent Authors puts on around the London Book Fair. And I just did a talk on something that I think is resonating with a lot of authors, and I'm hearing more talks about it at different conferences, is that foundational work that authors should do before they dive in, and how much time and frustration and money it can save them if they do that foundational work. And my talk was called How to Do Your Own Book Positioning Study. And I know, Judith, you and I have talked about the work you do with your clients in the beginning of the process and how important you feel that is to set people up for success in their, not only the creation of their book, but also the book product. So, after you have worked so hard on a manuscript, turning that into a book product that has to compete in a very competitive market for content. And so I think, it's not the sexiest topic, but that's really where we are now. So many people have jumped in, and in the very beginning there was so much opportunity and not a lot of competition, and now the competition is really stiff. And so you've got to have everything lined up foundationally to be successful. And one of the things that starts with that a lot of authors skip is, what are your goals for this book? What is it that you want to achieve creatively and professionally as the publisher of your own creative work. So that, to me, is the beginning. And so many times the things that authors want to achieve, they haven't articulated in a very specific fashion. And so they get into it and they're not even sure what they want to achieve, and they are not sure, because they haven't articulated the goals, exactly how to measure if they're reaching those general goals. So a lot of times they have to go back to the drawing board and start there. And then based on those goals, how is it you're going to market your book? How is it you're going to package your book? How is it you're going to launch your book? All of those things come back to the goals that you set at the very beginning of the journey.
Well, one of the things when I was down in Guadalajara, that I had a flip chart, and I just put literally on it and asked the question, and I went around to every one of them. What is success to you? What does it look like?
Yeah.
What's it feel like? And the answers were really varied on that. Mm-hmm. And, from as simple as, I just want to say I did it. And that's a big hurrah. I get that. And the others, want to have the major media knocking on the doors, and others want to make buku bundles of money, and all these other things in between that could include a positioning for their business. It could include maybe a breakout, starting a new career. Maybe it's just creating a little book have the family to know what in the heck went on in mom's life. But that, I think this is so critical. This is the beginning, and I think that what authors, I'm going to just really echo what you're saying, Kathy, because too many authors jump in and they want to write a book, and you've heard me say, and my audience has always heard me say, that of the 3+ million books that are put out each year now, 80% of them, in my opinion, shouldn't be allowed out of the gate, because they didn't think about this critical, essential thing is, what do I really want to do? What do I really want to do with this? Why am I doing it? And who am I doing it for?
Yeah, and the who, I think, and the next step in the journey is knowing who your audience is. Again, foundationally, really understanding the genre and subgenres, categories that you're writing in, and specifically understanding what the audience for that genre not only expects out of your manuscript, and the kind of entertainment or reading or nonfiction, whatever experience that you're providing in your book, but also, how do they find books? How much do they pay for books? What kind of titles and color palettes inspire them? Where do they hang out socially? How do they share books? How much, income do they have? Are they more male, female? What's their age range? And that is after the, understanding your goals is understanding your audience. Again, foundational to your success, because the more targeted you can be in providing a book that delights, especially as a new author, but delights even a small audience, that has like a halo effect with regard to the kind of reviews you get, to the kind of viral sharing that can take off, that can grow your audience. But again, it starts with understanding what delights them and how to get your book in front of them so they can not only discover it, but buy it and share it and help you grow your audience. So, again, these things, are more about the beginning of the journey. And I find not only do a lot of first-time authors not do this, but a lot of authors who have multiple books are struggling because they haven't done this. And one big thing that people don't really think about is understanding your audience, and those audience expectations can actually influence the manuscript. There are certain genres that have a specific voice to them, that, a specific narration style. So it's fine to break those, creatively, but you need to understand them, and you need to understand why you're breaking them. And even the greatest artists in the world typically start by knowing the basics of the craft and then playing around with it. So whenever I get pushback on that, like, well, I don't want this to impact my storyline, and well, then that's fine, but understand that to build an audience, and if that's an important goal for you, to build an audience for your book and sell books, you don't have a brand name yet, so you're kind of taking a big risk. So why don't you go out there and build an audience who trusts you, and then start breaking the rules, because they'll follow you because they understand your skill, they are delighted by the reading experience that is offered in your book, and now you can start to mash it up and break the rules. But in the beginning of your journey, most every author needs to find an audience, and then they need to find an audience and make them happy. The other big mistake I see is in certain genres, readers will not look at a book unless it is a series, and yet the author has not strategically thought about this, so there's no indication on the cover that this is the first in a series, or that they don't, and there's a lot of missed opportunities, and then they have to go back and redo the cover. So again, this kind of understanding of foundationally positioning your book and your author brand for success starts with thinking less about just one book and more about the bigger picture and where you want to go. I mean, are you doing one book? Is that it? That's fine. But you might make different decisions based on that. But if you have multiple books in you and you really want to build either a second income off of this or your primary income, you have to be more strategic than that. And that requires really a foundational understanding of the marketplace for your genre and your goals.
Yeah. And those are the kind of discussions that I always have with my first meeting with a client. And that, when laying out, is it a series? There are all kinds of ways you can do it. You could be blatant and saying the series in a band across the top. You can have a blank book that tells a reader, we're talking fiction here, that lets them know, so maybe there's more books in whatever this blank book is. And that I always want my fiction authors to, and I tell them, even if you're going to morph it, it changes. It doesn't have to be put in gold here, but give me the first couple of chapters of your next book to tease them, to let them know it's going. Cause you're so right. Readers today who you want to become a super fan of you they're looking for someone who's in for the long haul. They don't want a one book pony relationship. They really want to develop that with you. So you need to start that from the get-go. I think it's really important. And you can, and in your back cover, you can say, in book 2, blah, 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 discovers or something like that. And that just lets it go.
Absolutely. And ebooks have made, that so amazing because you can, I think for fiction, you can tease with the first chapter of the next book, and you can actually have all kinds of, advertising. You can put in the front of your book, an invite to get,
Kathy, I want you to hold that thought. Yeah. Kathy, hold that thought. Let's come back to advertising gimmicks, because some of them are really gimmicks. We need to take a quick break. We're going to come back. We're really talking about how to make your book and book series and your career really successful. With me is Kathy Meis, the CEO and visionary of Bublish, and we'll kiss on Bublish too, but really talking about the essentials. For me, these are essentials. This is AuthorU, your guide to book publishing.
This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. And we'll be right back with more great information right after these.
Is there a book in you or another? AuthorU will show you how to create, develop, and publish your book without being hoodwinked. If you already have a book out, you'll find a supportive and brainstorming community that's connected and creative no matter where you live. AuthorU brings in national experts for its book camps and annual author extravaganza held each May. It has regular meetings and delivers webinars for its members on timely topics. Through AuthorU's extensive network, members enjoy exclusive benefits, including significant discounts for a variety of services necessary to publishing. The Resource, its online book publishing news magazine, is content-heavy and it's free. If you want to create a book that has pizzazz, punch, and panache, AuthorU is for you. If you're a hobbyist or a casual author, it's not. Join AuthorU today through its website at AuthorU.org. Follow AuthorU on Twitter at AuthorU and on Facebook at AuthorU, where timely author and publishing tips and articles are posted daily. AuthorU, where the author goes to become seriously successful.
Every picture tells a story. And it's a truism that people do judge a book by its cover. Nick Sellinger and NZ Graphics have been in the business of producing superior graphic cover design and interior layout for self-published authors, independent and traditional publishers for years. He has developed a reputation for excellent work, fast turnarounds, and best of all, affordable pricing. NZ Graphics also produces ebooks and book marketing materials such as posters, sell sheets, postcards, bookmarks, business cards, logos, and more. Books designed for his clients have won multiple book awards, including Best Book Award by U.S. Book News, multiple Evie Awards from the Colorado Independent Publishers Association, Indie Book Awards, the San Francisco Book Festival Award, and Freedom Medal Award from Valley Forge. Visit www.nzgraphics.com or call 303-985-4174 for more details about making your book the success it should be. Mention that you are an FOJ, friend of Judith's, and that you heard about NZ Graphics on your guide to book publishing.
One of the most important decisions you will ever make is your choice for printing your book. You are choosing a company which will be responsible for guiding you through the process and printing your book at a level of quality and detail that embraces your personal and creative needs. You want to choose a company that when your book finally arrives, you are delighted and ready to move on to the next level, and one that is customer focused. Choose King Printing Company and Addy Books to be that company that brings you to the next level. Go to kingprinting.com or call 978-458-2345 and ask for Tom Campbell.
Welcome back to your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. If you want to write and publish a book, if you want to be successful as an author, your guide to book publishing, everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask, is for you. Stay tuned and you'll hear about statistics, scenarios, and strategies on what to do now to get you published. So let's get back to the show. And here again is your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
All right. So, teases, advertising, and you know what? Maybe we could even kiss Kathy on sponsorship, because sometimes in books, in ideas, and I know I just have a client that we decided to feature somebody else as a star in his new nonfiction book because he's hoping to hook them in as a key sponsor post the book coming out. And you can do, if you've ever been to a movie lately or a television series, or if you watch just popular shows, there are product placements within them that are used all the time. Yeah. So how can an author maybe take advantage of this kind of advertising?
Well, I don't know as much about sponsorships, but I do know it is an emerging concept. And I think, one thing is for sure, because the economics of publishing a book have changed so dramatically with the rise of online shopping and the rise of ebooks and many, many other factors, that you're going to see a lot of new models, and it behooves all authors to explore them and learn about them. The sponsorship, I think, and sponsored products is in its early days. but I think it's going to become huge because authors need those types of things to, make the numbers work for a lot of their books.
Well, there's some strategy.
Yeah,
let me add on to that since I have had multiple sponsorships in books. That in my book, The Confidence Factor, the very first book, The Confidence Factor, and I've actually had several variations, and the title was so successful we kept it, and we kept the subtitle, Cosmic Gooses Make Golden Eggs. And I actually had people saying, gooses is an incorrect grammar, and I said, I really know it, but it works with this, and it's my book, and I'm going with it. So anyway, that and it's the old, lemons can make lemonade type thing. But the reality is that I did have a full-blown sponsor. Bristol Myers was the sponsor behind the survey for that book, and I was their national spokesperson for one of their products for 3 years. And it was for a product called Carrie Hand Lotion, and one of my charges was, as their spokesperson, was to move the product, which was primarily used in hospitals and well-known and beloved in hospitals, into a shelf on Costco. Okay? That was my charge. And we did it very successfully through a variety of strategies, and where I was working with their PR firm. I mean, oh my God, Kathy, I was speaking in the center court of 80 shopping centers over the 3 years.
Wow.
I hated it. Made me a better speaker. And when you can keep your focus where someone is skateboarding in front of you, let me tell you. But I digress. Anyway, that because Carrie, the product Carrie, not Bristol Myers, and it was called the Carrie Report on Women in Confidence, which was the core. And we came up with 6 key components that came from a survey, of which, and it was all about confidence, and one which was the appearance factor, which tied into moisturizing. Okay. So that's how we winged it in. But with that, and Carrie is a superb product. I mean, I've been a real supporter of it since my relationship. But that because I had mentioned Carrie multiple times, of which GMA loved me and Today loved me and all that, because it was an overabundance of the product. So here's what I'm throwing out to people. When you are repetitive of a sponsor or a product, and it's within your book, and you're trying to get national media, you may throw yourself under the bus. And although we got lots of media and coverage, the big ones that would be the book promotion, Today or Good Morning America, shied away because of the quasi name placement within it. And so that was a hurt. But on the other side, that they bought 25,000 copies of the book. So I didn't care. I didn't care.
Yeah.
And the placement of those things, and it was a very long term 3-year where they were underwriting my speaking, and we were sampling product, and we were doing all that. So, it was that. And they did come back to me and said they got more coverage with me as their spokesperson than they ever speculated they would get. So, you can develop a long-term relationship that could spin off into underwriting speaking gigs where someone says, we really want you, but we can't afford you. Well, that's okay. I've got someone who can write the check. All right. But here's the string attached to it. And so there's things that you can do, but you need to be really smart about that. And I'm a big believer in trying to get sponsors. They're really being, I think, as you as the author need to be strategic in what you do. If there is a product, if there is a company that you think's the cat's meow, that you think that there's a possibility that maybe they could come in and support you in a speaking or writing books, or using what we call a premium distribution, where they buy them and maybe they offer them in their stores, or they have product placements, or they do those things. You study it and see if it might work. And see where you go. I mean, we did a children's book that was, that was about poop, and the squatty potty people. The author called the squatty potty people, and they fell in love with it. The next thing I know, she's getting ready to go on QVC. I mean, what can I say about these things?
Yeah, no, that's great to hear. I have not really worked with authors on sponsorships yet, but I think that's, and again, it comes back to those goals, and, clearly, with the Carrie one, you wanted to do the speaking, there was bulk purchasing involved, so you assessed, and you knew, and then your target audience is also impacted by that sponsorship. So again, it comes back to really laying out a business plan around your book. I would say, people say, well, that's only with nonfiction, but I think it's with all books, because you really have to think of yourself and put yourself in the publisher role. Yeah,
you can. And let me come back. A couple of things so people can trigger, since we've started the juice machine on that. When you're thinking of sponsorships, there's usually two key people that you talk to. I mean, if you're pals with the CEO of a company or something, that's always a door opener. But it's usually going to be the director or VP of marketing that's involved, or it's going to be the PR firm. Those are going to be your two key players that are looking for kind of a placement, kind of a push out, that kind of thing. And that.
Let me ask you this: how big a platform do you have to have? I mean, what is again, step one before you go out for a big sponsorship like this? What do you have to have foundationally in place to impress them?
They want to have a decent looking website. I will tell you that they want to see. It's rarely do they want to see a brand new baby author coming out unless they have a national reputation for something already that's hanging out there. For what happened with the Bristol Myers deal, actually it came from a failure, if you can believe that. They were looking for a woman who had already been successful, that maybe had gone through a bumpy time. I had just went through an embezzlement where I'd lost $1 million, and I went through hell. And they were looking for someone who had already started the recovery. They wanted to have someone who knew how to spring back. That was important in their ingredient. So they flew me back to New York, and we did an interview, and we all got along, and we got married. And when I was approached, I got a call from the go-between saying, would I be interested in being a spokesperson for a company? And they wouldn't tell me what the product was initially. And I was open to it. I just said, if it has anything to do with smoking, the answer is no. I had a couple of things the answer was no on. So we went together, and we got together, and I flew back to New York, and we got married. But the thing other is, though, that you can think, if you've got a product, for example, or a concept, or you have a theme within your book, this could be especially in the nonfiction arena, that might be a fit for a product. This is where you could approach somebody, a VP of marketing or the CEO, and just saying, this might be an ideal premium, and premium is the right word to use. A might deal premium to give for your new members, or to carry in the store, or maybe you have a special push on a product that we could design a special cover with your name included on it. You could write a opening letter from the CEO or the VP of marketing. And we're talking about ego stroking here, that they have a special run, and that you can, and who we're talking to, because we're talking about independent publishing here, that you can go and you can get a special print run. And, you whether you want 1,000 copies or 5,000 or whatever, we can get that bid and let you know. And that, Kathy, is how I started my own publishing company, because I had someone who called and wanted 1,000 copies of a book, of which I knew only 60 existed. And I was able to negotiate enough money to get 2,000 copies. And that's what started Mile High Press. So there are ways to do this.
Judith, I love it. Scrappy.
but there are ways to do this, and you end up working in a relationship together, and you become a proponent. Yeah. So going back to your question, it wasn't so critical. I mean, when I did this, social media didn't exist. So, Twitter, irrelevant. What they want is someone who's knowledgeable and who could articulate. And on the cases where I had sponsorships, they wanted someone who could jump in and do media, and I had done media.
Yeah.
And even though I had done plenty of media, they still put me through media training, because they wanted to make sure their message was right.
You were ready. And, I think there's the rise of, now in book publishing, you see a lot of these YouTube stars getting book deals in traditional publishing, and that's very, those channels are very sponsorship driven because influencer marketing has become so powerful. So again, if what Judith is saying, just talking to the audience here directly, if you like what Judith is saying, now, becoming an influencer, you're going to have to think of your book in a multimedia type of format, I think. A lot of video around the content, a lot of social content around of the book content. So it's all intermingled, and we get ideas and concepts in a variety of ways because we walk around with these devices. And the next generation, doesn't go home and watch TV anymore. They go home and turn on their YouTube channel, and they watch the bloggers that they like who are doing their daily messaging, and there's tons of sponsorship in that model. And so book publishing, I think, is going to, it has followed the music industry in many ways. I think the next model for publishing in nonfiction especially is going to be a lot like what we see happening in YouTube.
Well, let's come back to that. Let's take another quick break because, I am not married to YouTube. I know it's big, but I am a binge watcher. I do a TV and I do a binge watching. So that's another variation of the theme. All right, we're going to be right back with AuthorU, your guide to book publishing. I'm Judith Briles, your book shepherd. And with me is the visionary and CEO of Bublish, which we haven't even got into, Kathy Meis. We'll be right back.
Fine.
This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. And we'll be right back with more great information right after these.
Since 1987, Color House Graphics has set the standard for quality book production. Whether you decide to print a small quantity of books or need a large print run, depend on Color House to help you. You'll receive professional help and advice the moment you reach one of our representatives. If you mention hearing about us on your guide to book publishing with Judith Briles, we will provide you with a discount on the first order you place. To speak with a project manager, call us toll-free at 800-454-1916 or visit us at www.colorhousegraphics.com.
Want to publish like a pro today? Well, then take a look at Ingram Spark, the only publishing platform that offers print and ebook services through a single source. Upload, edit, and manage titles all in one place. Take more control of printing costs with print on demand, and reach even more readers through one of the world's most extensive distribution networks. Built by independent publishers for independent publishers, Ingram Spark has everything you need to maximize your book's potential: color printing, ebook distribution, print on demand, global reach, and more. Start publishing with Ingram Spark today and see just how far your titles will go tomorrow. That's ingramspark.com.
Welcome back to your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. Coming up, you'll hear more about statistics, scenarios, and strategies on what to do now to get you published. So let's get back to the show. And here again is your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
All righty. So we have, I love it that we can digress and go off into different areas. And we hadn't even thought about talking about sponsorship today, but it is a critical thing to think about. To support you in advertising and different ways to do it. And one of the things that I do talk with my clients about, especially the nonfiction side of, it's always who do you know who? Besides who is your audience, who do you know who? who can bring you into something, that can introduce you to something, that could be a supporter. It's just all of that is critical. And I think that what's really imperative for an author to be successful, now we're talking all genres, is you have to really move away from this attitude that is so prevalent, is that just leave me alone, I want to write. I don't want to market. Mm-hmm. This is all part of marketing. It's all part of marketing. The who do you know who? How can we get other people to talk to you? And so what Kathy has seeded the whole conversation with is, how do you develop the buzz? And it goes back to the foundation and your strategy from the really beginning. So what was your vision for your book? What kind of passion are you going to bring to the party to keep it going when you hit the road bumps? Because I'm guaranteeing you're going to hit them. And, what's your commitment of time, energy, and money? And I think Kathy and I are both parallel in authors needing to get that and acknowledging it and use it as a driving force.
Yeah, and early on, because, at Bublish we call authors authorpreneurs, which some people love that word and some people don't. But the concept is, if you are going to be your own publisher, you are starting an entrepreneurial endeavor. And that means you need to have an entrepreneurial mindset and a plan and an understanding. No one would launch a product for a business or a service for a business without understanding if there was a product market fit, or who their audience was for the product, and how they purchase things. So it really is, and I think it is more challenging for authors because this is such a creative journey in the writing process. Even in nonfiction and fiction, it's very creative and it's very emotional. And then you get to the point where you have to start thinking about marketing, and it feels uncomfortable, and you're not comfortable putting on that entrepreneurial business person hat because this was a creative journey. But truly, for success, you have to do that. And understanding the audience, and, we just talked a ton about influencers. That's part of it, like who influences your audience. And if you can get a few of those influencers, to take a look at your book, and your book is well fit to delight them. It's crafted to delight them, both as a manuscript, the inside product of the book, the actual story or the actual information in the book, and then the packaging of it, because there's an understanding of the marketplace and the expectations and what will delight them. Then you start to get traction, and that traction is beyond family and friends, which, they're part of the journey, but that's not a sustainable thing unless you make 40 new friends a day. But it's better to say, I even heard something the other day that was interesting. If you have all your friends and family go out and buy the book on Amazon, you're actually telling the algorithms at Amazon, this is your audience, when it's not. And it actually comes back to bite you when you do things like run Amazon ads, because you haven't gone out to a target audience that then these giant algorithms and databases that run these online retailers are misinformed. They're like, oh, this target audience is this, and it's your family and friends, instead of the true understanding of who your target audience is beyond that group, and getting them, like setting up a pre-order campaign that actually gets your book in front of the true target audience, which, if you've done your foundational work and you've done a book positioning study or worked with someone like Judith to get those ducks in a row and understand that marketplace, then, you can really get algorithmic motion, which is another thing that authors need to understand, that much of the book marketplace now is not run by human beings. It's run by computers. So, again, in the positioning study, you're studying your audience, and you're studying things like the hashtags they use to describe your genre. You're studying the keywords they use to search for books in your genre. And, Amazon is one of the biggest search engines of the world. It's not just a marketplace.
Yes, it's huge.
Like a Google. And if you understand those keywords, and then you understand your comparable authors, who's another author that, and what are their titles that are, if you were creating a virtual bookshelf, you would want your book on this bookshelf. And, we run Amazon ads for our authors, and I'm telling you, those are the keywords that transfer and get lots of sales on the ad, is those comparable titles and those comparable authors. But if you haven't sat down and said, okay, my book belongs on this shelf, and here are 10 to 20 books, and you haven't studied everything those successful books have done, you've missed an opportunity as the publisher of your own work to lay a foundation for success in this marketplace that is not only driven by, still very strongly by word of mouth, but by what I say when I'm joking is word of algorithm.
Well, and I think what you're saying, this is really critical. So one of the things that my first meeting with a client is we're getting into keywords. I'll take them to a cool keyword spy. But really, here's where you want to find some of your critical words really fast. You think you may know your words, and you may be wrong. And I see that probably more times than not, Kathy, when I'm working with authors. So we're going to go back to, I'm going to have my Book Shepherd hat on right now, and I'm going to pretend all of your clients, and I am going to ask you, one, who are the top influencers in your genre? Who are the best-selling authors right now in your genre? 3, are you following them on their blogs, on their social media feeds? If you're not, you are going to before you leave here today. I make them do it. All right. Next up, and you're going to start making comments because you're going to start building a relationship because you may want to reach out and ask for their support. There's nothing wrong with that, and you should be doing it. But then you're going to go over to their websites, and you're going to study them. What critical words are they using either in their tagline underneath their name, on their banner, or 2, which I believe you all should be doing, by the way. But 2, what are the keywords they're using in the first 2 paragraphs about them, about their work? What keywords are popping out? They are giving you the hints of what the keywords are that you should be looking at, that's tying in exactly what Kathy is trying to illustrate with the advertising that is done with Amazon's keywords in that. And that when you get that, number one, you've done a huge shortcut in your marketing. Yep. Huge shortcut. And really this deal, to me, I wrote down is I actually take notes when we do shows, but the critical mistake, and screws up the algorithms that Amazon lives on. The robots thrive. That's what their nibbles foods are. And Amazon, you have to feed it. Okay. So if you're feeding them the wrong food, which is your family and friends, unless they are absolutely true, devoted readers and representative absolutely of what you're looking for out there. Most likely they're not. They're your family and friends, and they love you. They just want to support you. Let them come in on the second wave here. But you really want to be talking out to these other people to fill them so they feed the juice to develop the algorithms so that when you do step up to the plate and buy advertising, and Kathy, what I'd like to do is really talk about what some of the cost of this is if you do advertising to accelerate what you're doing, is then what you can do is you get, number one, far more bang for your buck. Far more bang for your buck.
Absolutely.
Which means, cha-ching, book sales. And isn't that what we're after when we do advertising here?
Yeah, and you know what else I like Amazon advertising? Because you learn so much. You can experiment. So just to explain how it works, when you upload your book to Amazon, you put in what's called metadata, the title, if you have a subtitle, your series title. You are asked to put it into categories, that are wrapped around genres, health, wellness, fitness, and then subcategories of that. And then you go to keywords, and then you enter your synopsis. But you cannot in any of that, mention another author or another book title. So that's against the terms of service. When you go to do advertising, you can actually put in titles and author names plus keywords that are comparable to your book. So you're basically saying to Amazon, I would like you to show my promoted sponsored product on on this page. And then you're going to buy for that by saying, and my bid for that placement is, this much. And if you get a click-through, you're gonna be in a competitive marketplace, but you're going to pay somewhere around that or less or whatever. It just depends on how it's served up. But you're telling the algorithms, my book is like this, and I'd like my sponsored product to show up. And the way to see what these ads look like is to go onto any product page on Amazon for a book that's like yours, and then just scroll down, and you'll see sponsored items, and there'll be a whole series of them. And it's a book cover and kind of a tweet-size bite teaser about the book, and then a link to click through to the product page, which would be yours. So it works very much like Google AdWords, so you only pay for click-throughs. So you really can't lose money on these, in any substantial amount, because you can always pause them. You can always add new keywords, and you'll see per keyword on your reports what's working. And you may get a lot of impressions, but not a lot of click-throughs. But remember, you're not paying for the impressions. You only pay when someone clicks through. So then if you're getting click-throughs but you're not getting sales, that's not a great one. So you can take that one out. Okay,
so voyeurs can do the voyeur thing all they want, but and there's no cost for a look-see, but the cost is for a click-through. Okay, so we're going to take our final break, and I want to come through and actually talk about some of the click-through cost, and so they can get a kind of a grasp of what that would look like. Sure. All right, it's AuthorU, your guide to book publishing. I'm Judith Briles, your book shepherd, and with me is Kathy Meis, and we are talking about all kinds of goodies, but really it's all about your success and maybe doing some of the things that you haven't even contemplated doing, or maybe doing some of the things you're doing now with a twist. We'll be right back.
This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. And we'll be right back with more great information right after these.
The book shepherding concept is simple. The publishing world is changing, and so must you. You need an experienced shepherd and a guide to partner with you as you create, strategize, develop, publish, and achieve your publishing goals. You can't do it alone without paying the price. You can spend your money creating a book that turns out to be so-so, or you can create a book that looks and feels classy, builds your brand, and is a financial success, a bestseller. It's your choice. You choose. You need the book shepherd. Publishing is riddled with obstacles, sometimes nightmares for the author. You don't need problems. You want solutions. Dr. Judith Briles will shepherd you through the maze and the chaos. At times, she's had to step in and rescue a book that has been sabotaged by a publisher or by a publishing service provider, or sometimes even the author themselves. Judith Briles is the book shepherd if you want to create a book with no regrets. Give her a call today, 303-885-2207. That's 303-885-2207, or email her at judith@briles.com. By the way, Briles is spelled B-R-I-L-E-S. Follow Judith on Twitter at My Book Shepherd and on Facebook at The Book Shepherd.
At Total Printing Systems, customer service is our priority. We are located in Southern Illinois. Our employees have an average of 18 years experience and know that customer relationships are important to our continued success. We have been a short-run book printer for nearly 40 years and always stay at the forefront of technology. Our niche is from 1 to 5,000 copies. Today, we offer digital, black and white, and 4-color high-speed inkjet printing, a cost-effective way to introduce color into your short-run titles. We, of course, offer traditional offset printing as well. Bindery is done in-house, from adhesive case binding to PUR perfect binding to mechanical binding of all types, including side sewing. We provide warehousing, kitting, distribution, inventory management, a new print-on-demand facility, streaming browser-based ebooks, and bookstore. Call us at 1-800-465-5200 for a quote on your next book project. You can also visit our website at www.tps1.com.
Welcome back to your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. If you want to write and publish a book, if you want to be successful as an author, your guide to book publishing, everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask, is for you. Stay tuned and you'll hear about statistics, scenarios, and strategies on what to do now to get you published. So let's get back to the show. And here again is your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
All right, final segment. Certainly our show took a totally different direction, which was what I was planning today, but that's fine. And, and it's a topic that I'm always interested in because I want authors to be successful. I get enormous joy out of seeing authors come through and whatever it is they're doing for it. It's kind of like that, the happy author dance. And so if you can figure out new ways and new tweaks, do things, any time of marketing is going to have some money cost to it. With social media and the internet, a lot of marketing has been able to be embraced with nominal costs that just didn't exist when I first started publishing 30 years ago. It just didn't exist. What we could have done back in the old days, if we can say the old days, Kathy. But
yes, we can.
For those of us who are a little longer in the tooth. Anyway, but what we can do is that we can look at where we're going now and what's coming up. And it is, everything is coming faster. There's no question about it. And new things are being developed, and that you do have to pay attention to what Amazon's up to because they are on the forefront of a lot of it. And certainly Amazon has been the self-publisher, independent publisher's best friend. And I know that we all piss and moan sometimes about some of the practices and stuff, but the reality is that the great deal of most young authors and young publishers wouldn't exist if Amazon wasn't in play. So let's all get over that and figure out what tools that they have that we can use effectively. So they introduced their marketing services really aggressively last May, I think, Kathy. It's not quite a year old. Is that about right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they kind of opened it up. They started where you could only use them if you were in KDP Select, and then they opened them up, yes.
Yeah. So now, now they've opened up the tools, and there's a variety of ways to do it. And Kathy's mentioned if people click on it. I've heard the phrase several times. So let's talk about the clicking and what it costs to become a player in the click for book arena. How's that sound?
Yeah, so let me just say one thing, because it is, again, goes back to that foundational understanding of your audience, the keywords, doing that positioning work before you launch or even launch a pre-order campaign, because what we tell our authors is we will not do an Amazon ad for you unless you have at least 20 starred reviews on Amazon with an average of 4.5 to 5 stars. So, and the more reviews you have, the better. We also would never run an ad for someone who doesn't have a brilliant synopsis that is going to, really just draw in that perfect person who's clicking through because they're on a comparable title. Remember, when they see this ad and they come to your page, and in 7 seconds, that book cover, that title, and that synopsis have to say either read the excerpt or buy the book. And if you lose them because you don't have a great product page, because you didn't write a synopsis that's going to resonate with those readers, or you haven't titled the book. I see that all the time, a title that doesn't make sense to a reader in that genre, or a book cover that looks unprofessional. You paid for that click-through, but you didn't get that sale. And it's not the keyword's fault. It's your fault because you didn't know to set up your product page to get that reader in 7 seconds to take action. So that's, back to, it is actually tied into that subject that we were talking about. But this works, the Amazon ads, you have to have the reviews in place. You have to have a great-looking product page, and then you need to know those comparables. Again, you get 1,000 keywords. And what we do to start our authors off is
1,000 keywords is a frickin' lot of keywords.
Yeah, you don't have to have that, but,
Whoa.
Every time a new book comes out that's a comparable, you can add it. So it's what we do is you can do automated keywords where Amazon tells you what the keywords are. We do not do that. We do manual, and then we take some of their suggestions. We go through them. Some of them are great, but some of them make no sense at all. And then we choose the keywords that Amazon has suggested. We tell the authors do $5 a day, run it ongoing because you can pause it at any time if you're not getting the results you want, or stop it. But run an ongoing $5 a day, and the basic Amazon suggestion is 25 cents a keyword. Now, the first couple of weeks, you're basically just going to start seeing the data fill. Like, you're getting impressions on this page, you're getting click-throughs on this page, you're paying this much for that keyword per click-through because it is a competitive bidding process. And then it's resulting in you spending more than you should for the sale, or it's delivering on great sales, or it's doing nothing but giving you impressions. So you learn a ton. So this is the other reason that doing an Amazon ad, it's so educational for the author to learn how the algorithms position their book, and then which comparable titles really lead to sales. And when you get a handful of those great ones, they end up being the ones that just deliver over and over and over. So, but the first 2 weeks, you're like, okay, well, I'll give you a perfect example. We have a book on networking that just launched, and we just started the ad because they had the foundation in place and they know their comparables. And John Maxwell, of course, just started to be a very strong keyword for this book and started delivering at a high rate. So we upped our bid on that keyword to 50 cents, and probably will continue to do that because it's performing, like 5 times more sales than what we're paying for the click-throughs. And then we said, okay, let's think of more author names like John Maxwell's, and we went through and we found more book titles, and we've just added them. So it is a dynamic, ongoing learning process, and when you get that secret sauce together, then you have something that is automatically selling your book. And this is the best type of marketing that authors, it is advertising, but just think of it being somewhat on autopilot. And that's so nice because you don't have to spend a lot of time or a lot of money. And I have authors, who are, and they're all the keywords that are delivering, the majority of them are comparable titles and comparable author names. And, they put in 250 at this point, and they have 1,200 in sales. And it just gets better and better and better.
1,200 books in sales,
with knowledge.
Kathy? Yeah, Kathy, 1,200 books in sales?
$1,200 in sales for just the ebook. Now, the other thing to know is Amazon is reporting on the ebook that you're advertising, but it has a halo effect for your whole series. This author has a series, and it goes cross-format. So you'll see a big jump in your print books, and book. If you have a series, you'll see a big jump in all of your sales. But this is just, in a matter of a couple of weeks on a first ad. So what will happen then is we'll start advertisements for other books in the series based on what we learned. So now you have multiple ads going So you can see very quickly that you can take it from just getting it right, tweaking it, getting it better, then taking that and transferring it over to ads for your other books. So it has an even bigger effect. And it has a great effect to have your book in multiple formats. So we encourage authors to do ads when they do have at least print and ebook, because a lot of people still want it in print, so they'll go over and buy the print book.
Well, remember that print books are over 60% of all sales, so let's not poo-poo it.
Depends on your genre, though. And again, that's knowing your genre. And how they read it.
Absolutely correct. And ebooks, I mean, when we look at the overall sales, ebooks a little about 20%, and what's roaring up is audiobooks. And doing that. So if you've got all three platforms, what you do is have the capability of domain over. And if you're in some of Amazon's other programs, like you're in the Matchbook program, then they can get the print book with the ebook at a much less discount. So it could be a home run for you. So there's just strategies. I think the bottom line is Kathy is talking about strategies that you need to look at. But I think most people, when they think of keywords, and I think this is an important thing to take away. It's just not, for example, keywords in what I write in the publishing field. So authors and books and publishing, self-publishing, etc. Those are all keywords. But there's also what Kathy introduced, best-selling authors, top influencers, which is what I was referring to. Or who are those players? Those are keywords because people are searching using their names as well. So, and so you're doing a cross deal. So if you have them in your keyword field and someone puts in Joe Blow, and Joe Blow just happens to be the kingpin in whatever your genre is or your specialty is, that all of a sudden you pop up too. I mean, how cool is that?
How cool is that? And the more you know about the influencers in your genre and the major books and the upcoming books, like you can keep your ad really relevant. But, John Maxwell, to me, I don't think of him as a networking guru.
I don't either at all.
Exactly, but he's business, right? And so the author of this book suggested John Maxwell because, it's a very strong business brand. And it gets a lot of traffic. His name gets a lot of traffic. So it was worth the experiment, and it made sense. And then we're like, okay, it's working. Let's take that over.
I love this
idea. And look at other, like Dale Carnegie. I mean, extremely old, all of those, well-known brand. Let's see if that works.
Yeah, and and then you have Nathaniel Hill. You have all those things. Start paying attention to that. All right, we've got to wrap up. I hate closing out now, but if you're in Colorado, Kathy is going to be here this weekend. I know that this is first live on the 30th. And in 2 days, we're going to do a program with her, which, number one, we will cover the fabulous Bublish vehicle to use for your marketing. But we're going to get into some of these advertising trends and how to use them in your promotion, because it's all connected. From the hip bone to the knee bone and all those things. So with that, Kathy, thanks so much for being with us today on AuthorU, your guide to book publishing.
It was great being here. Thanks for having me, Judith.
All right. So everyone, you all have a great writing, publishing week. Here's to your marketing with a twist in a new way, and get over and start learning. Study those product pages and reopen up the way you think of keywords. This is Judith Briles. I'm your book shepherd. We'll be with you next week.
Thank you for being a part of Your Guide to Book Publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. Each week, a variety of publishing pros will deliver insights and strategies to take you, the author, to the next level. You'll learn tips and secrets on how to create, strategize, develop, publish, and achieve book publishing success by making one very simple change in your book's journey. How to avoid the publishing predators. How to create an author and book platform that rocks. Learn how to make a living with your words and your books. Learn how to publish a book that has no regrets, and so much more. For more information, check out AuthorU.org, where authors who want to be seriously successful go. And Judith's website, thebookshepherd.com. Then join us again here next week for more. It's Your Guide to Book Publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. Brought to you by AuthorU and the Book Shepherd. Thursday evenings at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific,